There is a new type of woman all over my algorithm right now, and depending on the corner of the internet that you're on, she's either called a high value woman or a alpha female.
If you want to become a high value woman that everyone respects and will do anything for, then this video found you for a reason.
This is the kind of woman you need to become in order for you to become a high value woman. Women that give chances, that lack boundaries, that don't have self-respect are always the women to unfortunately get played by men.
Now, this woman has figured everything out. She makes her own money, she has boundaries, she does not chase men, she looks after herself and her looks, she's successful, but she's not operating in her masculine energy, and although she absolutely does not need a man, the man she eventually chooses should be successful, masculine, and preferably capable of providing for her.
Lastly, you know that you want to marry a man who's going to provide for you, but at the same time, you want to own a business. You just really like to do it to keep yourself active, keep yourself at tip-top mental shape.
Basically, the message is I make my own money and I'm not paying for dinner. Now, before I say anything else, I need to admit that there's something that makes this video slightly harder to make. A lot of the advice within this ecosystem is actually good advice. Women should have their own money. They should have standards. You should not make your boyfriend your entire identity. A lot of what they're saying is not exactly controversial, and I think that's part of the reason that the content is so popular. But there's something underneath this whole thing that I don't think we've properly named yet, because if the Tradwife told women to give up their independence, the alpha woman tells women that they will be safe if they just optimize themselves hard enough. And I think that second promise might be the more dangerous one. Now, before we go on, I need to give a disclaimer. This is not a gossip video. What we're doing in this video is diving into the critique of the movement, and I do not want this to turn into tearing one specific person down. Having said that, let's start at the beginning. Where did this even come from? Because this did not appear out of nowhere. The aspirational woman in internet culture has seen a few distinct personas of what should be aspirational over the past decade. Character one was the girl boss, and that was roughly 2014 to 2019, and this woman was all about work hard, climb the ladder, be independent, have it all. And the promise was that if you competed on men's terms in men's structures, you'd win. Now, all of this sounded great until having everything started to look a lot like doing everything, and a lot of women who did that ended up burnt out and underpaid. So then came character two, which I made a whole video about, the Tradwife. She was the backlash to the girl boss, basically the soft life response to all of that burnout.
The Tradwife trend is a response to the failed girl boss movement of the 2010s, but maybe not in the way you think. The girl boss era was marketed hard to millennial women. It was this entire culture built around you can have it all if you just hustle harder and get like a CEO mug. But at its core, girl boss feminism pretty much just said, look, white women can patriarchy too, while doing nothing to address the systemic barriers that prevent women from CEOing. Unpaid labor, a lack of paid leave, unaffordable childcare, wage gaps, white supremacy, misogynoir, capitalism. So when women inevitably burned out, the same system said, let's try to sell Gen Z women on the Tradwife.
Her message was that working constantly is miserable and that you shouldn't have to compete with men, that you could just let him provide and just come home. And the promise here was that if you stopped trying to do everything yourself, you would finally get to rest. Except most women watching that content could not afford to stop working. And as it turns out, the women who are selling it are actually working extremely hard. And now we have character three, the alpha female, the high value woman. And she's a synthesis, which is exactly why she's so appealing. She does not completely choose either side. She looks at the girl boss and says, I'm keeping the financial independence. And then she looks at the female energy world and says, I'm also keeping the softness and the provider and the traditional romance.
I'm a YouTuber. I make my own money. I take care of myself. I spoil my family. If tomorrow I want to quit being a YouTuber, I want to quit helping people, and I just want to be married to a wealthy guy, I can do that. And then I will be in the reality of a housewife.
So this ecosystem of content is a blend of a few different types of content that we've seen more over the past few years. Basically, it's a mix of self-worth content, feminine energy content, the provider man content, manifestation, and increasingly we're also seeing it get blended with the financial independence and entrepreneurship content. And honestly, on paper, this new ecosystem of content sounds like the correction, right? It sounds like the alpha female or high value woman learned from these previous archetypes of the aspirational woman, because this one is not sacrificing her income and she's also not sacrificing her softness. So then what is the problem with this content? Let's start with the part that I actually agree with, because I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. The financial messaging inside this movement is empowering for the most part. I would say it does give a little bit of an unrealistic view of entrepreneurship sometimes, where it's just like, okay, post yourself online and now you can get rich. As an online business owner, I would say it's much harder than that. But the underlying message of you can be whatever you want, sure, that's great. That's great messaging. Now, basically the leader, the most prominent content creator out there who is pushing this type of content is the Wizard Liz. She has millions of followers across her multiple platforms, and there's a lot of controversy around her. Now, again, this is not a gossip video, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but just recently she did a 3-hour-long interview with AB Talks where she gets asked what's the one thing that she wants women to learn from her, and this is what she says.
So tell them, focus on your career and work and money. Focus on that. A lot of women, they think like, okay, I'm just gonna go into a relationship with a man where he has money, he's gonna provide for me, whatever. Make sure that if anyone leaves your life, you still have yourself and you still have your resources.
I've made entire videos saying this exact same thing. That is word for word what I believe as well. So again, I'm not saying that none of this is good, because women really do get trapped by financial dependence and they stay in relationships because leaving would mean losing your lifestyle. And they really are still thought to tolerate things in relationships because being accommodating is somehow considered more feminine than having boundaries. So a huge amount of what's being said here is the best advice a lot of young women will ever receive, delivered by someone they would actually listen to. So the problem, it's everything that the advice comes attached to, and that's the part I personally want to get into, because the one thing that no one is asking is high value to whom? Who is it that the high value woman is of value to? Sit with that phrase for a second, because high value woman, it sounds like self-esteem, it sounds like you know your worth, but value isn't something you have on your own. It's something that exists in relation to something else. Something is always valuable to somebody, and you cannot really have a market with one person standing in it. So when we say high value woman, who's the market? Who's the buyer? And once you actually look at the content, the answer is usually not subtle.
High value women attract high value men. Here are 5 ways to make yourself a high value woman. Principle number 1 is having a filter surrounding the words that come out of your mouth. 2, feminine energy. 3, being emotionally intelligent.
If your man is checking out another woman and you react to that, you've already lost, okay? You're not gonna show it in your body, your energy, nothing like that. Because the second that you get jealous, you just walked yourself off the pedestal. Men, they compete over status, money, power, lifestyle. The second you say, wow, my coworker just bought a new Porsche, or Europe this summer was insane, yachts everywhere, whatever it is, now all of a sudden he's listening. His ego wakes up. You didn't chase, you didn't beg, you didn't raise your voice. You just reminded him that you have options.
So if you look at the transformation that you're being sold in this content, you have to get in shape, you have to take care of your appearance, become more feminine, you shouldn't chase, you should have standards, you should be a little mysterious, regulate your emotions, make your own money, do not need a man. And then what's the payoff of all of that at the end of the list? You will attract better men. A masculine man will finally recognize your value. You will stop attracting losers. You'll become the woman that he's terrified to lose. So it starts at stop centering men, and then somehow by the end of the list, we've arrived at become the kind of woman that the best men center. And I don't think that anybody really noticed that those two things aren't actually that far away from each other. The old obvious version of seeking male approval was please pick me, please like me, and the high value woman's version is I don't care whether you pick me, I pick myself, which genuinely does sound like liberation. And in some ways it is. What's actually happened psychologically is not that the male gaze got removed, it is that the sentence changed from please choose me to I will become so desirable that you'd be stupid not to choose me.
Okay, so what I recommend you do is always tell him, oh yeah, my exes, they always used to take care of me. Like I was always financially taken care of, all these things. You have to tell a man that. And maybe later down the line when you're already in a relationship, you can tell him like how it really was if you want to tell about your exes, and you can open up. Now, if you've already told him that your exes were so bad and they mistreated you, don't worry. You should say like, oh my God, my friend, she literally like, she's always taken care of by her husband or her boyfriend. He always does everything for her.
If the whole point is that you shouldn't need male validation anymore, why does so much of becoming a high value woman still seem to revolve around becoming exactly the kind of woman that a certain type of man is supposed to want? And she does feel more powerful because she's the one controlling access. She gets to decide. But him wanting her is what is seen as the evidence that the transformation has worked, right? And the man doesn't even have to be in the room anymore, which is the genuinely clever bit of all of this, because you've already learned how to look at yourself through his eyes and run the assessment yourself. He doesn't need to watch you. You will do it for him. Basically, the movement has turned self-worth into market worth, because know your worth is a beautiful sentence. It means that you have inherent value that doesn't go up and down depending on what you look like or who wants you or how much money you're making. But increase your value is different language. That's the language of an asset, something you improve so that it sells better. And the movement movement is using both interchangeably, often in the same video.
I came to visit her last week and I was like, oh my god, like I love your painting, the one in the middle that you made now. I was like, how much is that? And she goes like, yeah, that's $1,000. I looked at her, I'm like, how long did you work on that painting? And then she goes like, oh, I worked on it for 9 months. Okay, so you worked on that painting for 9 months and you're selling that for $1,000 when it's minimum worth 10,000, 100,000 even. Your painting should have a set price. And if your environment cannot meet that price, then you change the environment. I see women, they're like, oh my god, why do I never get spoiled? Why does a man never do anything for me? Blah, blah, blah. You don't think you deserve it. I know women that get spoiled. I know women that are housewives. You know how they think? Oh, they literally think that's the bare minimum. He should spoil me. In their head, it's no other way. In their head, this is literally how a relationship works. So for them, they get those type of guy because they don't settle for anything else. This guy won't do it, another guy will.
Painting metaphor is actually a really good illustration of the whole thing, and I think it reveals more than it means to, because the argument is that you're a valuable painting and you should never lower your price for a buyer who cannot afford you. You should simply change the room until you can find someone who can, which as career advice is pretty great advice. You have to charge what you're worth. I say this to women constantly, but when you apply that logic to a person, to her body, her femininity, her behavior, her desirability, you have just described a woman as a product with a price tag, which means that she's still for sale. She just gets to set the price herself now.
These are the signs of a true high value woman. If you have all of these, chances are men are literally obsessed with you. They see you as the end all be all woman. First thing is that you are so focused on yourself. You are not focused on friendships. You're not focused on relationships. Number two, you are always thinking about how you can level up in your health and in your looks. You're obsessed with going to Pilates. Number three, you have done the inner work. You're not super anxious like you used to be. You are not jealous like you used to be.
Basically, the content tells you that you're already worthy and then hands you a to-do list of everything you still need to do before you qualify, which is a paradox at the center of the entire movement. A philosophy built on telling women that they are inherently enough that comes with homework. Now, all of this was critique of the framing within the content, but this next part is a critique of the promise. And I think this is the thing that genuinely hurts people, and also the reason why there's so much controversy around specifically the Wizard Liz right now. The deal that is being offered is that if you just become beautiful enough, wealthy enough, confident enough, feminine enough, healed enough, detached enough, life will treat you accordingly. Beauty gets you a desirable partner. If you have high enough standards, people will treat you better. Money is what will buy you freedom, and if you just heal enough, apparently you end up in a healthy relationship. And each of those individually has a kernel of truth in it. That's why it works, and that's why it's so persuasive. But if you add all of them together, what you're saying is that outcomes are distributed according to how well a woman has optimized herself. And this is where I think we've ended up recreating one of the exact problems that women were trying to escape. Because the girl boss eventually became exhausting because women were expected to do everything. But look at the woman who we've created in her place. She has to be financially independent, but still allow a man to provide. She has to be ambitious, but still make sure that she's not stuck in masculine energy. She has to be beautiful, but not desperate for attention. At what point do we realize that we've set a new impossible standard, one that keeps going higher and higher and harder to reach? And the person this is clearest with is obviously the Wizard Liz.
If you are a beautiful woman, if you are a woman that has money, that has any talent, you better be prepared to become the biggest bitch ever. People, men and women, will attack you for no reason. They will not like you for no reason. Just because you're breeding, you will trigger them.
Again, I want to be careful here because this is not a gotcha and I'm not dunking on her. Honestly, watching that interview, I do have compassion for her and what she's gone through, but this is exactly why I think the alpha female promise might be more dangerous than the Tradwife one. Because the Tradwife promise is at least obviously risky, right? Everyone can see the trait that you're giving up your income depending on a man and you're just hoping that it works out. You know what you're gambling. But the alpha female promise is that there's no gamble at all, that you can build yourself into a woman that nothing bad can reach, that is untouchable. And the woman who built an entire following on never accept less, always walk away, don't be blackmailed, found herself in exactly the situation that she teaches women to avoid.
Recently, I was in a situation with the father of my child where I had given birth and I was in a country where I didn't have all of my rights, I didn't have my family, and this guy basically decided to blackmail me with my child.
She got cheated on while pregnant and then deported without her child. And everyone is making her out to be this huge fraud. But I don't think it's because she's a fraud. It's because life genuinely doesn't care about your frame. You cannot optimize your way out of being a human. There is no level of high value at which betrayal stops being possible. And that isn't her failing at her own philosophy. That's just the philosophy not being true at all. And this is where I want to give you my version, because I think the movement is answering the right question with the wrong answer. The alpha female version of independence is become so beautiful, rich, confident, and emotionally untouchable that nobody can ever have power over you. Now, my version is much less glamorous, and it's basically that you shouldn't be trying to make yourself untouchable. You should be trying to make yourself secure, which sounds like the same thing, but it's actually a completely different project, because you're not going to build a version of yourself that bad things bounce off. That woman does not exist. But what you can build is a life where something bad will happen, and it will, because that's just what life is, but you will still have somewhere to go. And financially, I think that is actually much simpler than the internet makes it sound. First of all, you have to make your own money because money gives you agency, not because successful women attract successful men, and not because independence makes you more high value. Make money because there is a huge difference between wanting somebody and financially needing them. Secondly, earning money is not enough. You need to own something. And I don't mean that you need to be a multimillionaire or buy an apartment tomorrow. You can start investing $50 even into a ETF or index fund. The amount that you can invest actually matters way less than just beginning and understanding that income pays for your life today, while assets are what starts building something for your future. Third, have walkaway money. Not because you should enter every relationship expecting it to fail or every employment expecting your boss to be toxic, but because when those things do happen, you need to be able to walk away. And if you do decide to stay, you're staying because you choose to and not because you cannot afford to not stay. And finally, do not make romantic success your financial plan. You can want a provider, you can want a wealthy husband, you can want to stay home with your children. None of those choices are automatically wrong. However, choosing the right man is not a financial strategy, because a perfectly good man can still lose his job, he can become ill, he can die, he can change, or he can simply just not be the person that you want to spend your life with. And your security should not be dependent completely on your ability to correctly predict another human being 20 years into the future. Now, all of this is honestly the reason that this channel even exists, and it's what I teach inside my membership, Rich Girl Academy. Inside this membership, we cover all things money, investing, budgeting, building a business from wherever it is that you're starting, and I will be inside the community answering any question that you might have. If you want to know whether this is the right fit for you, we actually have a free trial where you can go in and try it completely free for 7 days with the link in the description. And if you do decide to stay, we made the price as low as possible because we genuinely want this information to be accessible. Make sure to subscribe for more videos about money, financial independence, and the hidden incentives behind the ideas that are being sold to women online.